It's 5:30 and time to start the 5:15 meeting. Sorry for the confusion. We'll get that squared away as the clock ticks, and we'll do better. So this is a special meeting, the first budget hearing for Wednesday, September 11th. It has now come to order. Please silence your cell phones. And Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Cleveland.
Here.
Vice Mayor Perrine.
Here.
Commissioner Martin.
Here.
Commissioner Martin.
Here.
Commissioner McGurk.
Here.
Commissioner Hartman.
Here.
Thank you.
Martman.
Oh,
Martman.
Hartman.
Harton.
Martin and
Martman,
Hartman sound very
Hartman.
much alike.
It does
does.
indeed.
Yeah.
All right.
To old ears.
This is the first budget hearing, and we're anxious to hear what the public has to say on the topic. If there are any citizens who wish to speak on the budget, please come forward. You'll have 3 minutes. The light will come on, the green light will come on, your name and address for the record, please. When the yellow light comes on, you'll have 1 minute, and then when the red light comes on, you'll be done. Anyone for public participation?
Mayor, before they start, just as a matter of personal privilege,
Sir.
could we have a moment of silence in remembrance of today?
It's a great idea. Give us a second, my dear, and we'll continue. This is the 23rd anniversary of the 9/11 tragedy. For those of you that are not aware, I can't imagine being an American and unaware of that. And we have several firefighters present, brothers of the cloth. And for those that aren't with us anymore, we send up our thoughts and prayers. A moment of silence, please. Thank you very much. Okay. Now let's do public participation. Ma'am, please come forward, give us your name and your address for the record, and we're anxious to hear what you have to say. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, my name is Karen.
Come right up to that microphone. We want to be able to hear you, and so do the people at home.
Okay, Karen Galino, 452 Old Mission Road, New Smyrna Beach. We moved in about a little over a year ago, and we just got a new tax bill for 2025, and it's gone up $1,000. So I feel like there's a mistake there. And I would like to talk to somebody about it, grievance it.
Great. We'll take your name and address, and
Okay.
someone from the city will be in touch.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that.
All right, thanks.
Hello, Joe.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. As you know, I'm an engineer and kind of a numbers guy, and several observations. I noticed that there's an increase in staff of over 10 people, yet for some reason, well, I hope that those are correctly positioned and assume that they are. But it's interesting that with an increase in staff, the budget went down. The second is that per the presentation, we're the fourth lowest out of 12, out of 14 other municipalities in Venetian Bay. That seems kind of strange, having such a low mill rate, given that we have the greatest burden of all of those with all of the developments coming on board. Second point I would like to make, I want to borrow a couple of ideas from the Navy. One is called ConOps, having to do with the developments on board, and we heard a lively discussion last night. And that is that ConOps is, we need to change the way that we do development, both in the process that occurs and in the talent for implementing that. Secondly is situational awareness. We can't stand by, sign a contract, sit back and watch things happen without on-site monitoring. We need to know what's going on. That means people on site. and we think that that's also a change. With that being said, looking forward to the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments. Anyone else for public participation? So Cindy.
Cindy Sneezak, 512 Ubon, and thank you, Randy, for having us take that pause. Just a couple of requests that you may want to entertain or may not. I've asked the prior administration, so I'll try again. I think it would be illuminating, at least for the next public hearing, that part of the package include at least a 5-year, preferably a 6-year trend of plotting population against staff and against our salary and our salary and benefit costs. I think that would be illuminating. I know, Mr. Mayor, we've had a conversation probably at Saturday Morning Market about the doubling of staff over a period of several years, but nowhere in relation to the growth in population. So I think that'd be easy set of numbers to pull, and so I would ask for that. A question, if it comes up, I hope, as to what is included in the benefits column when we're looking at pages, I guess it's slide numbers 8 and 9 in terms of the different positions. I think I figured out what the reclass positions were, and that's what are on the significant salary increase page. But I think it would behoove the city manager to identify what those 10 positions are that are not the reclassed positions. And that would be it. That'd be really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your comments. Anyone else for public participation? Seeing none, public participation is now closed. Just a slight deviation from what is on your budget. I think rather than have Shaliza talk and then we'll switch, when we switch over to the Utility Commission, we'll just take the Utility Commission first, and then Shaliza will have the rest of the floor. Without objection. With that said, I'd like to introduce CEO Ephraim Chavez, who will give us some highlights. This is the first reading. We have the full budget, and we'll have another opportunity to have a fulsome discussion and a full briefing at the next meeting upcoming. So,
Thank you,
Ephraim,
Mayor and
welcome.
Commissioners.
Can I
Just to-
interject for 1 second?
Yeah.
Ordinance number 5424, an ordinance adopting the annual budget for the Utilities Commission, City of New Smyrna Beach, for fiscal year ending September 30th, 2025, providing for a public hearing, providing for conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. Second reading and public hearing will be September 24th, 2024. And we also should open the public hearing tonight.
Oh, we will. Public hearing is open. We'll hear the briefing, and then we'll open the public.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Just to give you an update, so this is the first reading, of course. So we do every year we do a 10-year budget on capital and 5-year on O&M. So on the on the income statement, we're at $83.4 million in revenue, and that's electric, water, reclaim. So continuing our services that we are providing. The expenses are slightly higher than the prior year budget, and that's only because what we've seen post-COVID, materials and costs, chemicals in particular, have gone up, but we've factored that in to our overall budget. And on our capital, just to switch, we're at $287.2 million for a 10-year budget. That's slightly higher than the year before's 10-year budget, and that has to do with a number of the initiatives that we're doing, AMI transmission loop. A number of these projects everything costs more, and we've adjusted the timing in that sense. But once again, we always are monitoring our costs, our capital expenditures, and our impact to our customers. So our goal is to always be the most cost-efficient utility, electric, water, reclaim for our community for the long-term benefit of our customers. So that's our first reading. So if you had any questions,
Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Do I understand you to say you have basically a rolling 10-year budget?
Yes, on the capital side, yep. Every
Thank
year
you.
we do that for the current year and then 9
Thank you.
subsequent.
Any other questions from any of my colleagues? You're good. Thank you, Ephraim. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay, thanks.
Public hearing is now open. If there are any citizens who wish to speak on this matter, please step forward and you'll be heard. Seeing none, public participation is now closed. Again, this is the first reading. We'll have another opportunity. Is there a motion to adopt ordinance 5424 on the first reading?
So moved.
Motion
Second.
and a second. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hartman,
Yes.
Commissioner McGurk,
Yes.
Commissioner Martin,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Perine,
Yes.
Mayor Cleveland.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And now, our Assistant Finance Director, Shirley Zabola, you have the floor, ma'am. We're anxious to hear your report.
Good afternoon. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yep.
Little technical difficulties, but thank you. Okay. So for our tentative citywide millage, we're proposing 4.6370 for operating, for debt service, 0.0895 to give us a total of 4.7265. Our rollback rate was 4.0813, which is 13.62% increase over the proposed. So for this year in total, we're proposing $136,917,060. Now a part of that 136 million includes 3.2 for capital equipment, 29 million for capital outlay. We have 10.5 new positions, which are the firefighter, the whole new firefighter division, and half a position in HR, and then the 6 reclassed positions that are listed below.
Shirley, as we go, do you want questions as we go or at the end?
At the end.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
3% overall salary increase unless it was specified, which will come later on. 3.6% increase in healthcare costs for Florida Healthcare, and 7.8% increase for Blue Cross Blue Shield. We had some significant changes from August. Part of that, we are assessing 97% ad valorem revenue, which gives us $29 million in ad valorem revenue to the general fund, which gave us an increase of $651. We are also using part of general fund reserves to help offset some of our expenses. Part of that as well, we also took heed of what the commission had recommended, and the departments went back in and, allowed for what they thought would be helpful to this, and so they decreased some of their expenses. So as listed on there, we have City Commission, Finance, IT, Leisure, Maintenance Ops, and Police, all giving money back to help fund other items. We have an increase in the land lease for the sports complex due to a reevaluation of the property, and it came in to $418,000. We've added the fire training materials, which was on the unfunded list. Police services, non-moving violations. There's a company that we've contracted with to help with the services. This is to cover their fees. HR, we're asking for additional funding for an external labor attorney of $150,000. Capital improvements, we had some decreases since staff also went back and reviewed their projects and got better estimates, better numbers. Washington Street went down to 2.7, Historic West Side went down to 3.7, Corbin Park went down to 6.8. Increases, on the other hand, the police boathouse now, it's pushed at $250,000. We've added the pavilion at Pettis Park for 122, which is CDBG funding. And I believe she's also going up for another grant. There's bathroom door replacements at Clancy and Esther Avenue for $35,000. We've added 2 motorcycles for the police. The fire alert system went up $8,000. Streets, we're adding 2 zero-tone mowers, scissor lift, Kubota, 4-passenger. Golf course, we're adding a reel mower. And then we come to the salaries. So I've tried to present it the way that has been asked before, separating salaries and incentives and benefits, et cetera. So benefits are inclusive of your health care, your long-term disability, short-term disability, anything that we have to pay for you as a staff member. Taxes are your plain, your taxes, and then your pension, it's either, police or fire, or for regular employees, it's your ICMA or your Mission Square. The incentives for both police and fires, it's educational incentive that they do get additional funding based on the education or the courses that they take. And I'm not going to go through the list in its entirety, but also the airport, their CPI index came back finally, and so they were able to increase their revenues on that one. And then we get into our property taxes. So this is last year versus what we're proposing for this year. We've gone up by 0.0225, which is 0.48% increase in total. We're sunsetting the 2005 debt. The 2018 debt went down, and of course the general operating millage increased by that 0.222 that we were required to increase by. So I've updated the property tax house. This is one of the slides that we've shown before, and it's just slightly different, but in total, New Smyrna Beach is only at 28% of the total for this median house property value. This one I know you guys like. So this is based on the other cities' proposed. So right now we are number 4 at the 4.63. We moved up 1 place from last year. We were number 3 last year. And that's it for me. Questions?
Absolutely. Questions from my colleagues? Comments? Yeah, let's start. Mr. McGurk, anything from you, sir?
Yeah, got a few questions. Thank you, Mayor. I know we moved up 1 from last year. We used to be the second lowest city, with DeBerry always being the lowest.
Correct.
Daytona Beach Shores and Ormond, over the last few years, have gone below us. And I brought this up previously. I don't expect you to have gotten this information, but I'm curious as to what created that, what allowed Ormond Beach, which is in some ways a relatively decent comparison to look at, What allowed them to drop down below us? I suspect, but have not confirmed, that it may have been a lot of the commercial growth that they have had. Is that something, I will certainly look into it, but is there a way to analyze what made that difference in your department? Or is that something that is a little too much out of the box of what you're used to doing?
We can for you. I mean, it's all information that's located on the Volusia County website, property appraiser's website. So we can look into it for you.
Yeah, and I would ask because you probably have relationships with Ormond Beach internal staff, finance department, that you can probably get information that me just kind of calling out of the blue, may not want to respond to. But that's interesting, and it has a lot to do with I think the future direction of the city and tough decisions we have to make going forward. We did raise our millage. We had to with the voter referendum 3 years ago. We're in our second year of millage increase to cover the labor increases due to minimum wage and a few other things. I generally like where we are. We're a challenging city because we have a lot of expectations to meet quality of life and level of service that's new to us. Over the last 10 years or so, the request for quality of life and level of service and amenities has changed dramatically from the historic aspect of the city. But I always want to make sure where we're at with our sister cities that we can have a good comparison at. So I appreciate that. With respect to increase of employees, I don't think that's been a surprise. I think we've had a number of different departments that needed to be staffed better. But I think the challenge is going to be going forward. How do we keep that balance with the revenue of the city with the increased expenses? I think, from the private sector, salaries and employee wages are through the roof, and we're experiencing that ourselves. Going into the next couple years, I'm not so optimistic on the economy. I think we're starting to see some slowdowns in the economy, and I don't think that's going to be. I don't think that has anything to do with being short term. I think we've had an unprecedented number of growth quarters this country's ever seen, by far. And the concern going forward is, what's our budget going to look like going into the next few years? I have a lot of concern. I want to be able to maintain and hold on to as many employees as we can. So I think it's going to be very important to make sure that we look forward and not just what it's looking like today or tomorrow. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Martin.
Mayor, if I may interject just a second. The increase in employees, the 10 specifically, are firefighters. That's for improved ambulatory services. Our expectation is that that business will pay for itself. So, if you call the ambulance, you'll pay for the ambulance. We'll file it on insurance, all those kind of things. The income derived will pay the salaries of those new personnel.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate that. Commissioner Martin, please.
We now have 3 full-time attorneys. Our legal fees are really substantial, and we've got 3 full-time attorneys. And I know we pay $85,000 for a special magistrate, and now we need another $150 more for external, I understand, labor legal advice. And I'm sure there are other outside counsels that we've hired this year and expect to next year. It just seems, I have some concerns, and others have expressed them to me, why this city requires so much legal advice. For example, DeLand has 1 attorney, and they're a larger city than we are, so there's some questions about that.
Yeah, I'll be happy to respond to that. My perspective here is we're not overstaffed in legal services. We're a complex organization dealing with some very complex issues, HR issues, development-related issues. The issues keep coming, and it's a very litigious time, and we're certainly being hit with a number of legal claims that we have to deal with. Our attorney staff, from my perspective, is excellent. They're doing a great job. There are certain specialties, just like in healthcare. We've got a great legal team, but there are going to be instances when we need to bring in outside counsel to help us deal with specific issues.
And I understand the need for outside counsel. It's just that we have so many more full-time attorneys than other cities. So, like the land has one, but they use a lot of outside counsel specifically for the reason you're talking about, that specialty. So I don't know whether the aggregate legal bill is less by having more full-time attorneys.
May I respond?
Sure.
So DeLand has outside counsel. So the level of service that's provided by having an internal attorney staff versus outside counsel is very different. So they're responding to commission inquiries, commission meetings, whereas we're available to staff every day, all day, and we're handling the commission as well. The labor attorney has always been separate from, just explaining.
No, I understand. I don't want to deal with just one. I understand the need for specialized outside attorneys for a number of things. I just want to make sure.
Okay, I just thought I would explain that labor counsel has always been separate. It's kind of part of HR, so it's not really considered. Those issues are different, so.
Again, it makes it very difficult to see the aggregate legal budget for the city, and it's lovely that we have expertise, but we seem to have a lot more expertise than other comparable cities. Just statement. And a question, and maybe we have a 333% additional fund requirement for the police boathouse than last we tried. So I didn't quite understand how we went up from 75 to 250.
Yeah, the Assistant Finance Director can address
I'm sorry?
that. The Assistant Finance Director can address that.
Okay.
So the last time, the number that was presented was for design only. This is for construction as well.
Okay, so this is design plus construction.
Correct.
Thanks.
Correct.
And then on the salaries, and this is probably for the next meeting, but, which of the positions increased more than 3% last year? And what would be the percentage increase for these positions this year? Because I know some people got substantial increases last year, and now they're getting a percentage increase on top of last year's increases.
So these listed positions only got 3%.
Each of the positions in here only received a 3% increase over last year?
Correct.
Okay, did everybody?
Last year, your question was for last year. What did they receive last year? So last year, they only received 3%, which was across the
Right.
board.
And so this year, they're increasing, getting an increase over the 3%.
Correct, that's what we're asking for.
And how did these people get selected to have the increase over 3%?
Yeah, let me
Because,
call on the.
it's not the entire staff of the city. so-
No, it's not, and there are reasons for that. The HR Director will respond.
Good afternoon. Commissioner Martin, some of those were carryover from the previous year when we had made a request. As you know, we had looked at some of the department heads that we were looking at increases for market. When I was working with previous city manager Khalid Rashadat, he had brought up some other that he thought were not classed appropriately. Some of those reclasses are included in there. And then there's also some compression issues. So specifically, I'll point out our police and our fire, those position changes that we're asking for, salary increases, those are due to internal compression within the department. So because of negotiated rates and the salaries that are included and the extra things that some of the more subordinate people are able to create in their salaries with the amount of hours they have to work, with the incentives they receive, the people who are included in this study that we gave you don't have that opportunity. So we're creating compression, and we have people who are subordinate making a lot more than people who are higher level than them. So we were looking at compression also. So those are just a myriad of reasons why we have those.
Okay, thank you. And I think Mr. Cowper and I discussed hiring a salary job analysis study that hopefully we'll be able to start this year, so we get real clarity on every position.
Absolutely. I think
Yes,
that's a
ma'am,
great
and
idea.
I think that's important, and I've spoken extensively with Ms. Kidd about that. And I think we'll be coming back to you in a few months to talk more about that. But at this point, we're going to be dealing with these issues piecemeal, just like we are this year, and it's a painful process to go through. And I do think that if we look comprehensively at the city and pick out some comparatives, we'll be in a better position to know what we need to be paying.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Before you go, Heather, I just want to camp there for a second. I think each of us will bring up some of the same topics, so rather than have you go back and forth 5 times, I'm going to pile on to whatever Commissioner Martin had to say. Can you help us, and it may be in the literature you've previously provided, a couple things. One of the citizens brought up a trend analysis, which I think is helpful for us to see 5 to 7 years of time and what that represented as at the macro level and at the individual level. In other words, what's been the salary level for a police captain for the last 5 years, 7 years? Similarly for any of those others. And are we keeping pace? Or are we ahead of industry or ahead of other cities? Or are we behind? Or are we right in the sweet spot? And so I think seeing that would really help us shine the light on, it's bare bones, 3%, keeping up with CPI, or, hey, no, we were behind as a city from where our similar size, similar threat, similar challenge cities are, and so we had to get up on the step or fear of losing some of our best and brightest. Those type of things are really helpful for us. And so I think I'd like to see that before, and maybe it's in there, maybe you've already provided it, but I don't see it yet. And so I want to know. I certainly believe we have the most awesome staff, and I want to make sure they're treated well. But I'm also responsible to the taxpayers, all of us in the city, to make sure that we're not gilding the lily, so to speak.
Absolutely.
That's where my brain was on that. And then, is there a point, Heather, that you could class us on how many of us is it taking to run the city of our size versus a city of a little bit larger, a little bit smaller around the county and around the state? That would be a helpful analysis for us to have. Because it dispels the rumors and the myths of we're fat, we're thick, we're over bloated on our staffing. Mr. Cowper's predecessor used to talk about our doldrum days from 2008 when the economy was down and we cut, and we were living in that for a lot longer than we needed to get back up onto a growing economy. Following the economic cycle, I think, is important. So stuff along that line, I don't know whether that's solely in your lane or Shaliza solely in your lane. There's probably a combination, but it would give a more fulsome picture to all that read what the documents you produce.
Okay, we can work on that together.
Yeah.
Ma'am, go ahead.
With Heather.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Oh,
No,
it's okay.
go ahead, finish up, Lisa.
Oh, no, I was just reminding when we talk about the budget going down from last year, generally speaking, we have projects through the years where we pull then from the general reserves, which is why the budget ends up growing through the year. So the beginning budget of this year being lower than the ending budget of last year sort of leaves out those transfers.
Right, and I think what I learned last time we went through this is there's an advance and retreat in the payback periods for when we get FEMA and the grants and what have you. And so it appears like, holy cow, look at, we set a budget of 110,000 last year and we were at 139. But lo and behold, this year, some of the repayment will come in and lower that expense. Do I have it right, or am I messed up there?
No, you have it correct.
All right, good enough. Vice Mayor.
So I love the spreadsheet you gave us on the comparisons to the other cities. I really appreciate it. I can tell you put a lot of time and thought in that. And that's what this board is looking for, because we love a lot of detail. I don't think you can give us too much detail.
Okay.
And the things that you put were thought-provoking in that, and I just want to thank you for that. You actually commented about why we would consider a city with population not near us, but it's competitive because that's where we're losing staff to. And those are the kind of things that, you know, maybe some of the audience, also citizens, want to hear. And I needed to hear that too. Yeah, maybe we should put that a little more as an impact, even though it's, let's say, DeLand, but it's still in Volusia County, or, you know, Port Orange or whatever, and the population may not be the 30,000 like you might see in another city down south or over north. But those are the places that we're losing staff to. I like seeing the whole comp package, because I think as we brought in Mr. Cowper, we didn't just look at his salary, we looked at the whole package. We might be higher on benefits or lower on benefits, but as overall, we're attracting good people as a whole. And I think if we took that spreadsheet and maybe added a couple of columns like the mayor suggested, by, okay, this person received a step up in pay because it was this far under whatever cities you're comparing to. I love seeing that, because it wasn't just a couple pull out and given to us, and not that that's, you know, what you've always done. It's just it gave us more to think ourselves in, and to know, did you make these adjustments all in 1 year from that spreadsheet to this? Did you just put them, and kind of tell us what your thought process was, or Mr. Cowper's? How did you get them from that to this? Are we taking that all at once, or are we doing it a little bit each year to get them up to where they should be?
So thank you very much for those comments. I appreciate that. I would say that this year, because we did the compression in 22, we did pretty much a 3% across the board last year. There were a couple reclasses that we had, but nothing significant that affected our budget greatly. I think Shaliza would agree. And so this year, I think it took into account, when we did do some of these increases, and you see some of those that look like they're large increases, that does take into account the last few years. It takes that into account. It also, one thing that didn't get pointed out in the information that I sent you, was the increases that other cities have made, local cities have made in the past 2 years. For instance, Daytona has done 7% 2 or 3 years in a row. Edgewater did 5% this past year. And those are things that, because of the way we contracted, we had our contracts that had a guarantee of 3%, and our commission chose not to make any changes to that. We've fallen a little bit behind. And so that's where we're seeing some of that catch up, that you are seeing these large increases in 1 year. You're seeing things that the market has just changed. It's much harder to find a specific position. We all know that anytime we're talking about police, it's more difficult to get any level police officers to stay in their positions for a longer amount of time. So those are all those things that get compounded together. They're sometimes difficult for me to put into a spreadsheet. I really liked Mr. Cowper's suggestion this year that we do the memo that we sent to you all, because it allowed me that to be able to give you guys more information so that you had those details and you could look at some of that stuff, and I could give you the information and the professional opinion that the mayor asked for at the last meeting, that we could give you that information of why we're looking at those things.
It was really beneficial, and
Good.
coming from a corporate background and not government, we would identify the market differences and where we had to do step-ups, and we've been trying to catch up ever since the minimum wage, was increased, because then everybody has to be stepped up. But one of the things that we did, and I don't know if government does this or not, but we actually adjusted, divided it in 2 or 3 years and got them to where they should be instead of taking the hit all in 1 year. But I don't know if that's, are we always behind doing it that way, or are we better to rip the Band-Aid off and just do it? And I guess my next question, I like taking care of the people we have before we start hiring more. It's like maintenance. Take care of what you have before you start building new buildings and expanding. Make sure we can retain, because there's a huge price in training. And I don't want the turnover all the time. And I think a lot of our turnover this year was just a lot of different reasons. And I think it's going to settle down now. We have a new city manager. We have a lot of, opportunities to grow and take care of what we do have, and then assess with the new manager, what are our needs? Let him go in and identify jobs if there's some job sharing that can be done, or internships that can be done. But it's always nice to have a fresh set of eyes, and we don't get into those weeds. We're not your managers, he is. And so we're going to rely on him this year. I don't like to do a lot of huge changes right off when he's new to this, until he gets a feel of what the staff issues are. And he's new, he needs to know all those things. But I'm very positive in looking at this. And I guess my next question is, if we take care of the ones that you guys have identified that's really needs addressed now, how many do we have that hasn't been addressed this year that's going to be coming? That'd be nice to know for next year. I would like to see, okay, this is our liability with what's coming for next year. You've identified this could be a potential problem. We don't want to lose those as well.
I think that's really difficult to say at this time. And I think, like Kevin said, he and I have talked extensively about a salary study. I think that'll be extremely beneficial for us. We've tried to do that in my office and look at that. We don't have some of the analytical tools that I would need to be able to do it. So we're doing it on a very rudimentary level. But even looking at that and the information that we're able to pull, our pay grades, this is where I find it difficult. Our pay grades look like they're all within the same ranges of the other cities at least in our local area. But when we look at actual salaries of our people, because we've not been keeping up with those same increases that other locations have, that's where we're falling behind. And that's where I think a salary study will look at that. I think also we did compression, and we did a great thing for our employees when we did that in 22. But I also think the amount of the compression, because we're trying to stay in a budget that works for you all, that works for our public, staying in that, I don't think at that time we did quite as much of a compression need as we needed to. So I think over the course of the last couple years, a lot of the reclasses that you've seen, a lot of the changes that have come because our people are still frustrated to feel like their longevity is not being appreciated. And I think that's something when we do our salary study that needs to come out also.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Follow up on the salary study. I hear Commissioner Martin often talking about the entire cost of a person on the staff. Is the intent of the salary to evaluate just salary across other places, or might it be the case where the salary was lower, but at the end of the added addition of the benefit packages, we were actually superior to a competitor? Is that
when we do an RFP for our salary study, we can set those parameters. So if we want to look at just salary, we can look at just salary. If we want to look at total compensation, we can look at total compensation,
including vacation? Holidays, vacation, like your spreadsheet had holidays, vacation.
Yeah, and we can put a dollar.
It just feels like a more fulsome recognition and understanding. It is exactly what, if a candidate comes to our town, evaluates leaving where they are to coming to here to say, hey, it wasn't the same salary, but look at all these other things, I want that, and so
Yeah.
they make that decision. That doesn't come free, that costs us at the end of the day,
Absolutely.
so we'd like to.
And
like
if
to
I may,
understand.
what I'd like to put onto that also is that the way our economy is today, especially at certain levels of our employees, unfortunately, the benefits are great, and looking at total compensation is absolutely something we should do, but I think what we run into sometimes too is we have an employee who's making $16 an hour, and they don't care what their benefits are today. They care what their salary is, and that's really difficult when we're looking at a big picture of the entire city. And Commissioner Martin, I totally appreciate the total compensation. It is absolutely there. The hard part is our economy today is making it difficult on both sides of that issue.
I have a question that would not apply to the minimum wage. Obviously, on the lower end of the wage scale. But what I've noticed is a growing trend, I'll call it of the under 40, to say I will take less salary because I want more personal time.
Absolutely.
So that is where the days off, time off, agreed, if you're just trying to figure out how to eat dinner tonight, that's not in the equation.
Right.
But it gets into the equation fairly early in the game, I think.
I completely agree with you. And along with that, I think one of the things that we would have to look at if we're going to look at making some of those adjustments where I can look at a total compensation package instead, where like you said, there may be one group who says, I would take this salary that you're advertising, but I would like this extra time. I'm not sure that our policies and procedures allow us to look at some of those things. And then as that person is here longer, then 5 years down the road, they have that extra time and they forgot. So now they want more money. So it's just trying to make that even and make sure that those things don't get missed if we're looking at different employment packages for people.
Well, it's just, we could get creative and say you can have X amount of salary or an extra day or something like that. There's a creativity because there are people who want the money, but there are people who want this work-life balance and want more time off. So there may be a way to put a dollar figure on it and let employees choose.
The hard part there is that I think the way we do our government accounting, I think it will become very difficult and we will create a lot of issues for our finance department. That's my worry. And so trying to work with that team also, how we would document that, how we'd keep track of it, how we make those changes as we go forward. And it's out there and it's a possibility. It's how do we make that actually work? And that would be the difficult part that then finance would be tasked with that
But,
part.
I mean, if we let it sort of gestate for a year, this time next year, we may have an answer. How's that?
Yeah, absolutely. We could look into those things and see where we could go with them.
It would be great to be that agile. I like that agility. I see Shaliza sweating over there because I know it's a nightmare.
Well, the
from that.
problem also comes in, it creates more of a liability on our books. Plus, you also have certain departments where if somebody is out, you have to have this other person in place, and then you have overtime, so it's more money that's being spent. Although they may get a cheaper salary and they get the day, but overall, I'm going to end up spending more probably.
As I said, it could gestate. But my concern is as we want younger employees, we may be forced into finding a way to make it work. I am certainly not saying let's all wake up tomorrow and do this. But if we think about it and look at it and ask others about it over, say, a year, there's a chance that this time next year we may be able to say this is something we can do.
Maybe include it as part of the RFP for the salary study.
I think that would be great.
And I think too, we'll have to be careful with our contracts that we have. You know, we do
Yeah.
have the 3 union contracts that we deal with. So we'll have to be careful about how we affect those. And that may be where it's one of those benefits that starts with one group only, something of that nature. It's things that we can definitely look at.
I bet in a year we can come through a lot of things and, hopefully this time next year, we may have some answers. We may not, but it's worth trying.
We would have at least looked at it.
Thanks.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am, just 1 second and I'll get to you. The city manager, might you have, Kevin, through your vast experience, have you seen it always work this way, or have you seen any of the features that we're teasing up here be effective in any other places you've been?
Well, You know, I think that every local government is having to reevaluate what they're doing. So a lot of what I've been seeing lately has more to do with quality of life, the time off. Probably more than that is flex schedules, you know, working 10-hour days, 4 10-hour days, or, you know, 9.5-hour days, having Friday afternoon off, that kind of thing is really becoming more important to people. You know, it's just different lifestyles that people have today. So, you know, traditionally that kind of flex schedule has been difficult for local government to respond to. I think we're doing a much better job today with that. And so, you know, all of that, as you're saying, you know, the person is looking at a job, they're looking at the whole package. Salary probably being the most important thing, but time off and, you know, just the quality of the workforce and the work environment, that certainly all comes into play. And so I think we've just got to continue to look at best practices that are happening out there and evaluate what that means for us as an organization. There are certain things that we can do and can't do. I don't think you want us to shut down our building department on a Friday afternoon so that they can work 4 10-hour days. We're probably going to continue to offer that service at least 5 days a week where, you know, that's just the way it is. But other areas we can be more flexible with.
Thank you, sir. And Vice Mayor.
Oh, I'm done with.
Good. Okay,
I just
Commissioner.
have one more question for finance.
You want to do it?
Sure.
Okay.
Just to page 5, remind me the decreases, was that money from each of those budgets that were over budgeted from last year? Is that where that came from?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Hartman.
Can you explain that one again?
Yeah, we can go into a little bit more detail if you would like us to on those line items.
Yeah.
Lisa?
So some of it were line items that were suggested. Some of it came from the department themselves because they went back in, reevaluated what they had and what their needs were, and gave dollar amounts. So for example, the $5,000 for the city commission, that was from the promotions account. For finance, that came from our other contractual services. For PD, some of it came from their electric utilities account.
What about IT?
IT was the iPads. You guys said you didn't want iPads next year, so he gave up the $11,000. And leisure services, it was mostly their operating accounts that they gave up here or there, a $2,000 or $1,000 here and there to add up to it.
After Hartman finishes, we'll go back and have you redo it. Anything else?
Oh,
Randy, you're
yeah.
up. All yours.
Oh, okay, thanks. On that same page, page 5, the police service fees for non-moving violations, that's what we're going to pay a vendor to provide to.
Right, so we basically need to increase the money we pay Duncan Solutions, but the best way I can explain that is we pay between $250 and $350 a parking ticket, but because we wrote so many more parking tickets, 1,100 a month, we're collecting significant more revenue, so I have to increase the expenses to cover that small percentage we have to pay them.
Okay.
It just doesn't show the revenue.
But that also ends up on the revenue side then?
Correct, the revenue is way higher.
Okay. But where are we on the unpaid parking tickets from 2 or 3 years ago? We were almost 2 million.
Right, so it's funny, I was just texting Jack that right now, so he's gonna have numbers to me by tomorrow. He's seeing a significant increase in collections, I just can't quote the numbers.
Okay. And that's just coming into the general fund then?
Correct.
Yep.
But it doesn't necessarily come into this budget?
No, so
Okay.
it might come into 24, it may come into 25. It just
Okay.
depends on when we receive the money.
But
All
it's shown as a revenue.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
On page 6, I have some concerns over the decreases in stormwater projects. I mean, we heard it again last night. You know, we've had tons of emails on stormwater issues over and over for the last year and a half, 2 years. and here we are decreasing projects. Is there an explanation?
Do you want to take that one,
Yeah.
Ron?
So it's a function of a couple of things. Updating the estimates of the cost of the projects, and then evaluating how much, since these are multi-year projects, we budget the monies over several years. So these increases are how much we're only budgeting this year for those projects. There's monies being encumbered, so the total project is actually higher than what these budgeted amounts for. So what we're saying is what we anticipate on the historic west side, we anticipated going into this year that we were going to have to budget $3.9 million to complete that project this year.
Right.
But based on estimates, based on what we've spent, based on what we have previously budgeted encumbered, we're carrying those over. So we had roughly about $200,000 on that project that we're carrying over that we didn't spend. So therefore, we only have to budget additional 3.7 as opposed to 3.9.
But my concern there is that I've never seen a stormwater project come in under budget. There's always change orders.
No, this isn't the total price of the project.
Right, yeah.
This is the amount of money that we have to budget this year to complete, in this case, Historic West Side, a $5.5 million project. Okay, so what this number is reflecting is the new monies we're budgeting for this year to complete the total $5.5 million project. So based on expenditures, based on what we previously budgeted, the amount of new money we have to budget is less than what we originally anticipated when we started the budget process.
But we haven't gone out for bid for any of these projects.
We haven't lowered the cost of the project. The project is higher now than what it was when we started.
Yes.
So, okay, so we had $5.5 million project. Let's say in this case, we budgeted for this fiscal year, let me get the math right to start, let's say that's 4 million instead of 3.9 to make the math work easy. So in this case, we had budgeted, say, 4 million, and this fiscal year we're in now, we had budgeted 1.5 for the total of 5.5. But based on this year, we're not spending $200,000 that we thought we were going to spend out of the 1.5 we budgeted this fiscal year. So we're carrying over $200,000 more from this year into next year, so therefore new money going into the project is less this year. So if you add, okay, so the point is we had 1.5 budgeted, we spent 1.3. So we've got 200,000 that we're carrying over in an encumbrance to this project moving forward. Had we spent that 200, the 3.9 would have been a true number. But since we're carrying over the $200,000, we now only have to budget 3.7 in new money. The project is still the same. This is just how much money we are budgeting for a total project of 5.5.
I understand all that, but the Utilities Commission just sat here and told you that all of their costs have gone up significantly in the last 2 to 3 years on projects. And if we don't put enough money aside now for projects, I'm afraid that when we do go out for bid and we get a contract for a project for the stormwater on the west side, we're going to come up short $700,000-800,000.
This number was, we updated all of the project estimates before we started the budget process. The original Historic West Side estimate when we first started the project was in the $3 million or $2 million range. So prior to the budget process, I had staff update the estimates on all that. So if you look back in your historical document, you're going to see a much lower price for the Historic West Side project. Right now, the current estimate, based on where we're at in the design phase of that project, is 5.5 million. Now, yes, we're going to establish a policy that we're going to do constant re-estimates of these projects when we get 30% design, 50% design, 100% design. So yes, I agree with your concept, but based on the information that we have right now, this is a 5.5 million project. We're carrying over $200,000 more from this fiscal year into that than we anticipated. So the amount of new money we're throwing into the project is $200,000 less than what we anticipated, at the beginning of the budget process.
And both of these are projects that we started 4 years ago, and we haven't even had the final design done yet.
Yes, sir.
So it'd be another 8 years before we get them built? All right.
Yeah, does it have to do with the speed of the project? And if so, faster seems better to me, especially when you talk about stormwater drainage.
I agree. Yes, sir.
What's the magic to making it faster?
The magic in making it faster is ensuring that we hold our consultants to task, getting cooperation from all of the parties involved, both partners in projects and regulatory agencies.
So it sounds the same as the private sector.
Yeah, right.
Trying to get all the pieces of the
What-
puzzle together at the same time.
Who owns, do we need stormwater is the thing. Do we need a stormwater person? That's what they do? I mean, you got David, and you got, you got
we
you
have a
and
stormwater
a lot of
person.
people that are slaying a lot of dragons. That's a big one around town.
Well, that's the function of our capital projects manager, is to, as I tell them when I hire them, is to ride herd on our staff, external consultants, and other partners in projects to keep these projects moving at a faster pace.
Just a quick one. Does this come from the stormwater fund?
That would be my understanding.
Sorry, so Washington Street is from the line of credit. Historic West Side and Corbin Park are ARPA, and we are going for another grant to cover those.
And I've seen that written down. And I apologize for asking again.
I'm sorry, Randy, we jumped in your time.
You're fine.
Go ahead.
I understand the increase in the boathouse. Is that all coming out of impact fees? Okay. On page 7, under the capital equipment, we went from a $60,000 reel mower to a $98,000 reel mower.
David?
So for the reel mower itself, it was a combination of the type of reel mower that we're getting, and also the price has gone up because that $60,000 price was initially the 23 model, and when we initially put it in the budget, the 24 models weren't out yet, and now we're going to be looking at the 25 model. That's essentially the going rate for the reel mowers that we need out there.
$38,000 increase in
Yeah, we're seeing that on our fleet, across a lot of our fleet, unfortunately.
I'm in the wrong business.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good. On the significant changes in the salaries, page 8.
Thanks, David.
I understand there's several of these that have incentives on there, and those incentives are educational incentives from the state?
Correct.
So, but we also get that money as a revenue source.
Some of it is.
Some of it is.
Some of it is, yes.
Okay. Because there's a couple that are like really out of whack. Like the fire training officer's getting almost $8,000, but the deputy fire chief gets nothing. And the fire chief only gets $4,300.
So now, it also depends on what they're actually, how do I want to say it? Like, if they have a degree, if whatever other certifications that they actually went out and attained, that's also a part of that dollar amount and how much they're able to earn.
Okay.
Yeah, those are part of what we carry over from the union contracts, that when those people promote out, that's one of the things that we have historically always carried over as they move up through the ranks, so that they don't lose that. So it's a combination of the education pay that I know you're talking about that I've always called it a pass-through. We pay it out, but we get reimbursed by the state, and that comes in as a revenue that comes in. The other are contractual, where they have, for instance, fire has 3 different levels that they can earn based on if they have a certain degree or certificate, if they have other certificates that they've earned. Police has theirs set up in the same way, where they have, if you have an associate's degree and something, if you have a bachelor's degree, if you move on to a master's, and then years of service, it's set up through that, and so it's different for everybody.
Yeah, you and I can have a conversation about that when we get into contract negotiations.
Yes.
because- Okay. So, on page 11 with the airport
Yeah.
lease revenue, that seems like a tremendous, along with the sports complex, that seems like a tremendous increase in projected cost, lease cost for
So
that.
this lease revenue is their revenue. So
Right.
it's for their T hangers. This is what the increase they're going to be charging their tenants. For the sports complex,
So the airport is going to be the revenue side of it.
correct.
Okay.
Now, this is separate from the sports complex. What happened with the sports
Right.
complex was a reevaluation of the property, and that significantly increased. They're required to do it, I believe, every 5 years.
Okay. And is there a specific time of the year in which you're required to do that? I mean, it would have been nicer to have known that back in July or something.
They were in the process of doing it and
Okay.
hadn't gotten back a final number
Okay.
at that point in time. So we estimated as best as we could and then went from there.
Yeah. Okay.
Could we just camp there for a second? This is FAA land, right?
Correct,
And we rent it from the FAA, and we've tried in the past to buy it.
correct.
It's never going to be used for anything but what we want it to be used for. What is the technique, and can't we beat that somehow? I mean, the police department's on there, so much land that we've got, and I just hate the fact that we rent it. It'll never be used by the FAA. Is it somehow wheedled into their budget? That's a cottage industry for them? How
That
much-
is part of their revenues.
That's
so,
a revenue stream
yes,
that they depend on because they own that land.
correct.
And,
They being the airport in this case, so.
yeah, but it's not going out of,
So for us, it's not really a cash transaction. It's just, it's a journal entry to say,
so it goes out of one pocket into the other?
Correct.
In the city? It's not
Correct.
really paid to the feds?
no, it's not.
We keep it locally. The problem is, going to the airport, it then becomes a restricted fund for only airport purposes.
Okay, that makes me feel a little bit better. We're not paying the feds for that, but it's going out of one of our pockets into the other, and now we can improve our airport with the funds
Correct.
that are there. Okay.
And that's why they give you a 75% grant as opposed to a 50 or a 30s because,
They know we're doing
Yeah.
that. I got it. Thanks.
so. The only other thing on page 12, I know you have this millage rate set here, but at our July meeting, or August meeting, we actually set it at 4.88.
That was the maximum millage.
Right.
So instruction was to keep at the 4.6 based on what I guess the feel was from the commission, not to raise it to the 4.8 and build our budget to that. So, I mean, if the commission agrees and we want to increase it, we still have that ability.
There is no shortage of asks.
I know.
These guys can spend it.
I know, and after the meeting last night, it seems like the majority of the residents would rather pay higher taxes than have new business come to town and offset those taxes, so. That's what I got out of it.
That was at 32,000
All right.
people last night.
On page 14, where we do the study of the cities,
Correct.
I think what is helpful for this, because I know that Daytona Beach Shores, only probably 5% of their ad valorem tax has exemptions. So, whereas in New Smyrna Beach, we probably are at 60 or 70% have our exemption. So your total dollar amount
Your
that we
taxable value is
receive.
higher.
So, I mean, if we really want to get into that, you'd really want to see what was the total tax dollars received per household, and would have a probably better comparison, but that's too much for you guys to work. But I mean, when I was looking at this is one of the things that kind of hit me strange, because Daytona Beach Shores, they only have 3 or 4% of their people that are actually exempt because they're all condos.
Do we have that actual statistic of homesteaded properties in town? What percentage of our residential properties are homesteaded?
Are homesteaded,
I would think that that would be
yeah, I would have to check the property appraiser's office. I don't remember seeing
See,
one
it
specifically showing
seems
homesteaded.
to me that it just feels like that would be a readily available statistic.
It is. I called last year and asked for it and got it right away. You can get that.
Yeah.
It's a surprisingly low number for what I thought we would have here in our
Well,
town.
then if we're going to compare it and say, yeah, right.
Yeah, so I mean, like, their 4.5 probably brings in a whole lot more cash dollars than our 4.8,
But
so.
the
4.7.
mayor is suggesting that we also have a low number of
Right.
homesteaded. So, but rather than speculating, we should be able to know, right? Yeah.
I think the number you're looking for, Commissioner Hartman, is what's the per capita taxable value of each of these communities?
Yes.
That's what you want.
Yeah. I don't really want to know, and I think we're on the bottom half of the list. I'm good with that. So.
If you want to get a good idea of the difference between our non-homesteaded properties and the benefit from it, just look at New Smyrna and Edgewater at the millage rate. That'll give you a good idea of the benefit we're receiving
Yeah.
from that.
Yeah, this is
So,
different from
I think-
homesteaded, but I want to tell you, I am really proud of myself. The
Microphone.
NSBU today asked what percentage was property. Who wants this one?
No, just
Oh, the NSBU today asked me what percentage is residential of our property taxes, and I said 80-ish, and I'm 83.
Okay.
That's all the questions I had. Thanks. Thank you for all those.
Thank you, sir.
Just a couple. This has been great that we've been able to pile on and assist each other without worrying about the protocol. I like that. Back to the legal staff question in comparison. Carrie, can you offer, maybe you're in touch with your colleagues. You know what
Yes.
they're outsourcing, what they're insourcing, how many cases they got compared to how many you got. Can you help us through so that we don't leave here today thinking, wow, why are we are we in legal trouble, or
Yeah.
how do we compare?
So this isn't, I didn't look at these numbers today, but we are the smallest legal office in Volusia County. Ormond Beach has 3 attorneys, and they have at least 2 support staff, possibly 3. Port Orange has 3 attorneys. They have 3 or 4 support staff. We have 3 attorneys. We have 1 support staff who does half the time handling our trip and falls. The other attorneys also have labor counsel. You know, the crazy, or not the crazy thing, but the thing we have to remember is that no matter the size of the city, we're dealing with the same number of departments, the same type of issues. So, you know, in Daytona, where they have 7 attorneys and 5 support staff, they focus on one individual thing. So one of them just does land use. One of them just does police legal, where we're taking our 3 and stretching them out over all these different departments. So I'm dismayed by the portrayal that has been made tonight. And as far as my mind goes, coming from Daytona to here, it's a harder job here than it is in Daytona. You get to focus on one thing. You have all the same resources, and coming here, where we cover all the departments, that's all I need to say tonight.
Just could ask, I think the question was the aggregate legal cost, right? In other words, we may not need as many outside resources because we have staff here. So if we went through just trying to understand the aggregate between roughly comparable areas.
So the DeLand case, I looked it up. DeLand's attorney is not a staff attorney. He works for a private firm, and he's on a retainer. I had a similar situation in Eustis, where our city attorney was a contract attorney. So while we only show one city attorney, at any one time, there's multiple staff members from that person's firm
working on cases for the city.
And I can guarantee that that attorney is not available to them
Correct.
15 minutes before the meeting answering 6 or 7 different emails. So the level of service you get is very different when
Yes,
you
it
have
is.
an outside firm versus in-house staff.
I appreciate that a lot. Can you opine about the caseload comparison from city to city based on your interaction with your colleagues?
We all, for Port Orange, Ormond, and New Smyrna Beach, we have insurance counsel. That's the same. They handle the trip and falls. Daytona Beach is self-insured, so they handle some of their cases in-house, which we do as well. We handle our petitions for writ, any of the written documents, the evictions, we're handling that in-house. They also have outside counsel in Daytona Beach. They have outside counsel for their homeless issues, their panhandling issues. When they have major issues, they're using outside counsel.
I appreciate that. Thank you, ma'am. Back to the Washington Street project, maybe Ron.
Yes, sir.
We often talk about the longer you wait, the more expensive it gets, COVID, supply chain, all that stuff. Help me again. The price of Washington Street's not going down. It's just our pace of activity is slow.
Correct.
Okay. Because that's a big number to go from 4 million down to 2.7. So I just.
The amount, the 4 to 2 million is not a reflection of the cost of the project. It's a reflection on how much new money we have to budget to fund that project. These are budget numbers, not project numbers. There's a difference.
Got it. Thank you for that. And I liked the answers there, our CIP manager, and we've had 3 in the last year or so. So love to have some stability there. If you
Well, we have Mr. Kobe is coming back with us on the 30th of this month.
Yeah,
So
if you quit chasing them away, that'd be great, Ron.
yes, sir.
Thank you. So the last is a philosophical one. I've heard my predecessor opine about it, and it's where do we want to be on that slide 14, if you're looking. Where's the right place for New Smyrna Beach? You heard a resident tonight, you heard Joe come up and say, hey, with all of our challenges, how the heck in the world can this city, which has significantly different stormwater challenges, parking, growth, blah, 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 infrastructure, how in the world can we be 3rd or 4th from the top of the league? And for the level of service we get, are we paying the right price? I come from both in my government career and in my corporate career, a rate per unit was always an important measure. So as a taxpayer, what does it cost me for every head, a conglomerate of what each person on the city staff costs per taxpayer? What are we getting a value there? And how do we compare that to to our competition? I view the other cities as the competition. And so are we more efficient, therefore we're executing better, or are we less efficient? So that's I think it's a meaningful comparison on an efficiency level. So more philosophical for the city manager and the budget director of a rate per service or a rate per resident of how much goodness we're getting. On a comparative level, what's the right place for we all decided we're going to live here. We didn't decide we'd live in Orange City or Port Orange, and look at their rates. I mean, it implies to me that we're getting a huge bonus. I don't live in either of those places, and they pay a whole lot more than we're paying. So, are we delivering the services that our clientele want us to, and are we giving them a value? Where should we be in terms of a quality product and quality of life? So I don't know the exact answer to that, and I don't think that it's important that we answer that tonight, but for the benefit of the residents watching and those that would be concerned, the room's nearly empty here tonight. This is a big deal, and our constituency is not on the doorstep saying, hey, what the heck are you doing with all our money? So that's an indicator to me of goodness. By the same token, I like the fact that we're in the number 4 spot, and I enjoyed it when we were on the number 2 spot, but I don't know, but I'm a neophyte. I don't know that that's goodness. I like low government and I like mean and lean, but our clientele demands, we've been a cheap and cheerful town for decades, a blue-collar town for a while. That is changing over time, and now we have people in their retirement ages with premiums that they're willing to pay for premium services, and they're demanding premium services. City manager, that's your bailiwick to make sure that that keeps going in the direction it is. I applaud you for doing it. I couldn't do it. And so I don't know if that's a floating number or what the rest of you feel about where we should be. Pretty proud of where it is right now. And as long as the residents don't pour in here and say you're wasting my tax dollars, and at the same time feel like they're getting the services they want, I think it's a recognition of overall goodness. Any reattacks? Any follow-ups by any of my colleagues?
Briefly.
1, 2, yes, ma'am.
Oh, just while we're trying to get projects finished that have languished, any chance we could get the 2017 Hazard Mitigation Grant Program finalized this upcoming year?
I don't know the answer to that question off the top of my head. Well, I can certainly check into it for you.
Well, yeah, because we've got 3 other projects for Idalia, Ian, and Nicole that are coming along, and we haven't finished the 2017 one yet. So it'd kind of be nice to get that buttoned up. And just one other comment, and I do understand that there's a high level of affluent retirees in town, but there's also a pretty substantial group of people on fixed incomes. And so I think we have to be sensitive to the fact that some people need money on their table for food more than they need money in some of our many beautiful activities. So there has to be a sensitivity to both. How's that?
Really well said. I would say that the cost of government is similar to the cost of what we see in our hospitality industry, the predominant industry in New Smyrna. Many of my colleagues and contacts out there are struggling to keep their talent, attract new talent, and man up their restaurants and hotels and shops. And as you mentioned before, the low end of the spectrum of the pay scale folks, they're not signing up for the 401k, they're not signing up for the health care benefits, they just want all the money they can get at the low end. The psychosis.
Yeah, no, I also meant the retirees. We have an awful lot of fixed income retirees.
I understand that. So the costs, their costs, we see that, if I see a 13% increase for our government here, you go out in any of our shops or eateries or other hotels in town, their rates are up significantly because their costs are up. And if we offered not any one more service here, but kept every service exactly the same, we're going to see a 10% increase a year in the cost of doing the same thing. So that's why I kind of harp on it's the processes that we do inside. If we do it the same way we've done it since the 1940s and 50s, we're never going to change what it costs to do that. That's why Mr. Cowper is here to say, I'm going to examine how we do business, not what it is we do, but how we do it, and if there's a better way and more efficient way that we jump on that bandwagon and not try to reduce our heads, but when somebody retires, consider not replacing one for one. That's the only way you can get ahead. Commissioner McGurk.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to finish up by saying, and you've heard this from me a lot, the historic aspect of this town, where we've come from, a blue-collar, working-class town, where we didn't tax anything, but you didn't get anything. And that has been changing over the past 10 or 15 years. And what Heather said, she hit the nail on the head, that if we don't, we'll bite the bullet after a long period of time of not keeping up with our competitors. And then we'll kind of pat ourselves on the back and be like, whoa, that was tough. We increased our salaries. We did a salary increase, and we've done that before. And then you know what we do when it comes time for the typical every budget every year? we cruise in there with, a 2%, 2.5%. So we don't keep up with what other cities are doing. So we get back in the same problem that we have now. So, I mean, it feels like it was just last year that we did a salary study to determine, I know it's been 4 years, but we struggled with that. And then on top of that, we had the voter referendum that made us increase the millage rate to keep up with some of the salaries. The key to what she said was, where do we want to keep, and Mayor, you touched on this, do we want to keep doing the same things we've been doing for the past 50 years, or how do we recognize the changes in our community, the demands from the people? And of course, Lisa, as you say, we have a lot of very affluent people who moved in here, but we still have people on fixed incomes. And that, to me, is the challenge going forward over the next few years. At this commission, we need to try to figure out how we're going to navigate those challenges. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other follow-ups? Yes, ma'am.
So I'm going to food for thought because of last night and a couple of the comments, people want to pay more taxes. I disagree with that because I don't think last night was a representation of 32,000 people here. And here's our problem. If you go to page 13 and you look at the market value of the homes that we have, is $477,000. Our employees can't even afford to live in New Smyrna. A lot of them drive. So that is a huge problem. Some of the people that speak up say, hey, lay it on me. I don't want growth. I'll pay the taxes all day long to keep people out of here. A good, thriving city is a mixture of all ages. We don't want this to only be a tourist town. Where are they going to live? If we don't start forward thinking and do this, they can send me dirty letters all they want. And I got a few of them today for approving Deering Park last night. I care about jobs. I care about our children and our grandchildren. And right now, we don't have that in this community, and it's only going to get worse. If you have to pay high taxes on a $477,000 house, it is tough. One of the couples that was here tonight that had the $1,000 increase, I can tell them right now why. Because they bought the house a year ago. The people that owned it before didn't pay the amount of money that they paid. Well, that jumps and that 3% is gone once that happens. We're going to price ourselves totally out of being able to afford a home here. End of story, we don't have affordable housing. We need it. We need places for our teachers and our own employees to be able to work and live in the same place. We don't have that. So as we go forward, we didn't approve a PUD or MDA last night. Commissioner Martin has said this, we need to look at what goes into that city. If they're going to walk into that area and not have to drive, they've got to be able to work and afford to live there. And I've preached that we've got to have places that they can live, and I've told that to Glenn Storch. I know you have told that, but this is something we can't cater to only people that can afford high taxes. We've got to keep them low because our tax base is so high. I just compared us to the other coast because I buy properties. And I was looking, and they're about $100,000 less in certain areas on beach towns on the other coast. Well, we don't have that luxury here. $477,000, $500,000 to buy a home here. I mean, that is what we got to think at. And we've got to consider 32,000 people, not just the people that show up in this room. We got voted on. I was voted and elected in this job because I represent economic development. I look for jobs and stuff. I look that those people put me in this position to help balance our budget, keep it lean, go forward, offer services that we can, but we're not just going to cater to the people that scream the loudest. It's got to be a nice balance, and that's how we need to do this board up here. And I think we're doing a great job of it, and we need to continue looking and questioning all these things at how we go forward.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your comments. Any others? Just a comment on behalf of the commission. Shalisa, congratulations, and thank you for the hard work. I know what you've been through. I know a fraction of what you've been through. I don't know what you've been through. And I know you've had you had a boss, then you lost a boss, then you had a boss, and now you're the boss. So appreciate how that's gone. All right. Thank you very much. There's a resolution 6024, the consideration of adoption of this resolution, which if adopted would adopt the tentative New Smyrna operating millage rate. This is the first reading. There'll be a second reading. Madam City Attorney, if you'll read the resolution 6024 by title only, please.
Resolution number 6024, a resolution of the City of New Smyrna Beach, Florida, tentatively determining the amount and fixing the rate of taxation and making the annual property ad valorem levy in the amount of 4.6370 mils per $1,000 of non-exempt assessed value for general fund operations of the city for fiscal year beginning October 1, 2024 through September 30th, 2025, scheduling a public hearing for final levy of ad valorem taxes and providing an effective date.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a motion to adopt 6024?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Anybody else? Madam City Clerk, please call a roll.
Commissioner Martin?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Breen?
Yes.
Commissioner Hartman?
No.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Mayor Cleveland?
No. Motion carries. All right. And now there's a motion 6124 to consider the adoption of a tentative New Smyrna INS for 2018 maximum millage rate. Madam City Attorney, if you'll read 6124 by title only, please.
Resolution number 6124, a resolution of the City of New Smyrna Beach, Florida, tentatively determining the amount and fixing the rate of taxation and making the annual property ad valorem levy in the amount of 0.0990 mils per $1,000 of non-exempt assessed value for the INS 2018 voted debt service for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2024 through September 30th, 2025, scheduling a public hearing for final levy of ad valorem taxes and providing an effective date.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a motion to approve 6124 on the payback for the INS?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Madam City Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Commissioner Hartman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Breen?
Yes.
Commissioner Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Cleveland?
Yes.
Thank you.
And now Resolution 6224, considering the adoption of a resolution which, if adopted, would adopt the tentative New Smyrna rate budget for fiscal year 24-25. Madam City Attorney, if you'll read 6224 by title only, please.
Resolution number 6224, a resolution of the City of New Smyrna Beach, Florida, tentatively adopting the budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2024, scheduling public hearing date for final budget adoption and providing for an effective date.
Is there a motion to adopt 6224?
So moved.
You had a motion
Second.
and a second. We get a second bite at this, right, Carrie? This will come again, yeah? Both of these come again?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Commissioner Martin?
It's an interesting problem. No.
Vice Mayor Breen?
Yes.
Commissioner Hartman?
No.
Mayor Cleveland?
Yes.
Thank you.
And now, Resolution 6324, which is the stormwater assessment of $8,667 per month, the equivalency of $104 annually to be advertised as part of the trim notice as non-ad valorem tax or special assessment. Madam City Attorney, if you'll read 6324 by title only, please.
Resolution number 6324, a resolution of the City of New Smyrna Beach, Florida, adopting the stormwater non-ad valorem special assessment rule, specifying the unit of measurement, certifying the role of Volusia County, providing for conflicting resolutions, and providing for an effective date.
Is there a motion for 6324?
So moved.
Is there a second? And then a second. Any discussion? Does this reflects the increase that you were after?
No,
Does
no,
not.
it does not, and I would dearly hope, thank you for bringing it up, that next year we would have it at least $10, because we know we're not beginning to collect the money we need for our stormwater issues. So you know, what is it, we're paying 8, and what did I think Palm Coast is paying something like 28 a month? So someplace between 8 and 28, there may be a reasonable amount. $10, $12 a month?
Got it, for that.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
Could we see that for next year, maybe? Whatever we have to do to make that happen. I think
Vote it
there's an
down, huh?
ordinance. Well, I believe I was told that we need an ordinance to increase the stormwater rate.
Yes, and it's possible there may need to be a study that accompanies it.
Yeah, so it's something that has to be requested now for next year, as I understand it. Is that correct?
It would need an ordinance revision.
Yeah, so can't make it happen tonight.
Very good. Any other discussion? Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hartman?
Yes.
Commissioner Martin?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Breen?
Yes.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Mayor Cleveland?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any follow-up comments from any of my colleagues?
Yes.
Uh,
There are some,
Vice
no-
Vice Mayor?
No, I
Anything
said
close
no.
out? You had a lot. Okay, good enough. Commissioner McGurk?
yeah, there are some no votes. I didn't hear any complaints or problems about the budget, so I'd certainly like to hear some for second reading if there's going to be more no votes on second reading.
Very good. Commissioner Martin, anything? Commissioner Hartman, anything?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, very good. Again, thank you, staff, for the contribution. Thank you, department heads, for being present. We are adjourned.